I am on the hunt for some 5-star reads, and so I think the best way to do that is to look back at what I've already given 5 stars. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is 4 Paws in a Book. I make bookish videos over here on my little corner of the internet, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Next month, during August, I get to be a co-host for Battleathon, hosted by Mel over at Melanor Reads. I'm going to be hosting Team Wings, along with Cassidy over at Covers with Cassidy. I am so excited to be able to do this. Battleathon was one of my favorite readathons last year, and I am so excited that Mel asked me to be a co-host this year. And if you have no idea what Battleathon is, first off, I will link the announcement down below, but it's super simple. Read as many good books as possible. You get point breakdowns for 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, and so on. So the idea is you want as many points for your team, which means you need 5-star books. And here's the thing, I don't know that I even know my own reading taste. I have done 5-star prediction videos in the past, and some of the books on these videos have ended up in my worst books of the year. Like, they weren't even close to being a 5-star. So I thought today I would do a 5-star audit and look at some of the books that I've given 5 stars and then try to find some themes, some commonalities, and pick some 5-star predictions using math and science rather than just gut feeling. This is by no means an original idea. A lot of people have done this on BookTube. But let's look at some of the books that I have given 5 stars in the past and try to find something. Try to find something. So I've pulled up my Goodreads stats page here, as you can see, and I'm looking at the books primarily from 2024, 2023, and 2022. I feel like anything beyond that, we're not going to get as accurate of a description, and honestly, I probably won't even look too deeply into 2022, but there are a couple on there that I know that like I still really love, and so I wanted to add that into the mix. But let's look at the most recent stuff, because I do know that like obviously if I've given something 5 stars recently, the likelihood of giving something 5 stars or even 4 stars honestly like something similar is pretty high. I think one of the things that I see pretty clearly across multiple genres is characters that are overcoming some sort of like, I don't want to say trauma, because like trauma bonding sounds bad, but like they have some sort of trauma or issue or something like that, but throughout the book they're really conquering that, and it's really obvious that like that character is still like a badass character. They're still kicking butt, they're still like taking names, and I can see that in a couple of different ones. First up, in The Fall Is All There Is, this character is autistic, but he's not making that his entire personality. He's still like, he uses that like almost as his superpower. At First Bite is a contemporary romance that kind of has that same thing, where our main character is going through a very severe bout of depression, and some of the scenes are extremely raw and real, but you can still tell that Athena is badass. And then one of the strengths, one of the real true strengths of Dark Knight Golden Dawn was the characters, and how like there was one scene where she definitely is dealing with her PTSD, and like it's a smut scene, so it's like super steamy and stuff like that, but at the same time it is just so raw and powerful, and that is the reason, like that scene honestly is the reason why I still continue to think about this book, and so that's why it got a 5 star. For a book with a character that has trauma that's still a badass, I am going to add to my TBR Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. Bonus points because it will get us our Team Wings bonus word with Empire. This one I'm putting on here because I specifically remember in Cassidy's vlog, I think it was actually last year for Battleathon, she read this one and she was like, if you liked Daughter of No Worlds, you would like this book, but she thought it had too much trauma bonding in this book. But I love Daughter of No Worlds for that reason, so I'm putting this one on here in the hopes that I will also love Empire of Sand. I also have another Tasha Suri book on this list coming up, so I really hope I love her writing. All right, let's look at a second trope, a second combination of things, I guess. I think I've always said that I like politics in fantasy specifically, but like politics in general, simply because of the courtroom drama, of the backstabbing, of the like manipulation, the just, you know, the morally gray characters come to play when we have like a really heavy political setting. So if you look at this year's books, definitely The Fall Is All There Is has that political landscape. There are 4 siblings that are vying for a throne. Dark Knight Golden Dawn has, it's more of like a mafia aspect, but you still have those like 2 sides that are fighting each other. Death by Fire was one that I read during Amazing Readathon, and it really came at the right time, right book, right time. And this is about like 4 different clans that used to be in harmony, and then a sorcerer kind of separated them all, and now they are trying to have this like political marriage to bring 2 of the clans back together. So we have like politics in fantasy romance. When you look at last year's books, that's when you really start seeing the political backdrops that are showing up in these 4- and 5-star reads. The easiest one that comes to mind is A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah, and that whole series. Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare was actually my favorite book of last year. That definitely has like a political aspect to it. The Ashes of the Sun trilogy definitely would fall into that category. Scarred by Emily McIntyre. This is a weird one because it's like actually a series of like villain fantasy romances with like Disney villains, and this is a Hamlet or Lion King fantasy romance, but there's definitely a political backdrop to it. And then of course the Fireborn series. I'm still looking for a book that will give me those same 5-star feels that Fireborn did. Also, if you think of the Neon Gods, the Dark Olympus series by Katie Roberts, specifically once we get onto like the 3rd, 4th book onward, that one definitely has a heavy political backdrop to it, and there's a large macro plot of, you know, corruption and takeover and stuff like that. There actually is a new Dark Olympus book coming out in August, and so I'm really hoping to get my hands on that one quickly and read that. The Blood Trials is also another one where it has a very strong political element to it. And then if you go back even farther to 2022, we see things like City of Brass, definitely like a political heavy fantasy. I have so many books that I could add to this list for a book where there's a political backdrop, there's revolutions, stuff like that. That has always been a buzzword for me, and so because of that, I pick them up a lot. So the other Tasha Suri book, The Jasmine Throne, this is the first in I think a trilogy. This says, trapped by her despotic brother within the crumbling walls of an ancient temple, Princess Malini dreams of vengeance. Forced to disavow her birthright and her power because of her past, maidservant Priya dreams of freedom. In a world beset by wild magic and turbulent uprising, their destinies will become irrevocably tangled, and together they will set an empire ablaze. I don't know why I haven't read this book yet. I don't know. I should love this book. Also another one that I'm pretty sure has a pretty political backdrop to it, and that's The Final Strife by Sarah Al-Arafi. This says, red is the blood of the elite of magic and control. Blue is the blood of the poor, of workers, of the resistance. Clear is the blood of the slaves, of the crushed, of the invisible. First book of a visionary fantasy trilogy with its roots in the mythology of Africa and Arabia, three women band together against a cruel empire that divides the people by blood. So sounds like another like revolution type aspect to it. Something else that I find really interesting is when we have some sort of like social experiment, social commentary, and it's done in a way where it's really seamless. I think the obvious one, like the one that I read the most recently, was the one by John Mars, where there is this dating app and like you can turn in your DNA and they'll tell you who your soulmate is. And there are catastrophic events, things that could happen and spiral out of control due to this app that's simply just telling you who your soulmate is. I think Yellowface by R.F. Kuang also kind of lands in this category. Even though it's not really a social experiment, we're really seeing how the public interacts with a piece of information and like how they took it and ran with it. So I think that could fall into this category as well. And then a book that I've been comparing the one to is The Measure by Nikki Erlich, which ended up on my best books list of 2022. So that one also has this social experiment where there are like everybody gets a string and that kind of determines how long your life is going to be. So that was really interesting as well. I feel like I haven't read a ton of these books, but it's definitely something I'm on the hunt for. So if you know of any, let me know. I know John Mars has several of them, and so I'll definitely be trying to read some during Battleathon. I have a couple of options for this because as I was looking at my shelves, I was like, you know what else is a social experiment? And that is dystopian books. Because if you think of like Fantasticland, I loved that book. And that's kind of like on this verge of dystopian because it's like a group of people that are, you know, going absolutely insane because they're locked in somewhere. So I feel like that's also a social experiment. So John Mars obviously has a couple of these options. I do want to reread The Passengers, but I don't know that I want to do that this month. I don't know. The other one is The Family Experiment, which is his newest one, and then also The Marriage Act. Those all have some sort of like social experiment to them. Also kind of thinking of these like near future dystopian books, I hesitate to call these 5-star predictions because they can be really hit or miss. Like I've read some really bad dystopian books and I've read some really good ones. So that's why it didn't necessarily click for me as we were looking through Goodreads. But I do have a couple on my TBR. Severance by Ling Ma. The tagline says, "Is it the end of the world or just another day at the office?" Candace Shen, a newly minted New Yorker, first generation American, recent orphan, millennial worker bee, loves going to work. She likes the routine, the anonymity of the city. She likes coordinating the production of specialty Bibles, having a project to complete, an object to create, and troubles to shoot. Sometimes she likes watching movies in her boyfriend's basement apartment. Lather, rinse, repeat. So Candace barely notices when Shen fever sweeps New York. Families flee, companies cease operations, the subways squeak to a halt. Persuaded by a big payout by a one-person skeleton crew at the office, she spends her free time photographing the abandoned city as an anonymous blogger. New York ghosts. I feel like this could have some real interesting remnants of COVID, and it could be very real. And then I also have The Future by Naomi Alderman, and this says a handful of friends attempt to save the world from tech giants whose greed threaten the life as we know it. I enjoyed The Power by her. It's not a favorite of mine, but I enjoyed it. So this is something that's like a possibility. But like I said, dystopians, I'm like really hesitant to call 5-star predictions. Kind of going off of the politics, but a little bit of a left turn from there. I love religion in books, whether that be an actual like religion where the character is deconstructing in something like Priest by Sierra Simone, which is like kind of sacrilegious, honestly, and that's why I loved it. But also if you think of like Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater, it's not really sacrilegious. It is a little bit of a deconstructing in the sense of like we are not 100% going off of what the Bible says is true as our like end all be all. Same thing with The Library of the Unwritten, which I actually gave 4.5 stars. But that's also like it's angels and demons and like Satan and this epic heavenly battle. I love that in religion, but I also love fictitious religions. Again, this is going to be something that's pretty heavily in fantasy and or a little bit of sci-fi. A Touch of Light has this fictitious religion where one side worships life and light and one reveres death, and so they are always at odds with each other. Also, Path of Deceit by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland is a Star Wars novel, but it really took a look at the Force as a religion rather than like as this like sci-fi thing. The planet that we were on for this, the people kind of see it as a religion that they should be fearful of. Another trope that when I hear it's in a book, I tend to just collect books and pick them up. So that's religion in books. So I have a couple of them that will work. If you participated in the Amazing Readathon, this was a prompt and I was very excited about this prompt. Even though I knew there were people that would probably find it difficult, me personally found it very easy. So The Hells of Notre Dame is a sapphic romantasy that is a Hunchback of Notre Dame retelling. Can't go wrong there. I really need to read this series, and honestly, this is going to give me a great opportunity to do so. Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. This is a trilogy. Well, there's 4 in the series, but the 4th one's not out yet. But this is about these gods that came down, became like part human so that they could fall in love with the humans, and then they died with their partners that were human, and then we have the descendants, which are half human, half god, and they are evil, terrible people. But we have our main character who was told do not interact with the descendants, but she does, and I'm sure she's gonna fall in love with one. And then not a romantasy in the slightest, Sign Here by Claudia Lux. I've had for a really long time, and I think I've actually like almost unhauled it several times, but somehow it has stayed. A darkly humorous, surprisingly poignant and utterly gripping novel about a guy who works in hell, literally, and is on the cusp of a big promotion if only he can get one more member of the wealthy Harrison family to sell their soul. So it's like, it's giving MLM in hell. That's what it's giving. Kind of maybe more of a darker, funnier Small Miracles. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And I love Small Miracles, so this could be good. And I'm really hoping that there was a reason that I kept it on my shelves for so long. Something else I really like in books is when they play with time, but not in a Groundhog Day way. Groundhog Day tends to get really repetitive, and I haven't seen it done super well most of the time. However, if it's a little bit more unique in how it's playing with time travel, or like alternate reality type things, then we're on the right track. The one I can think of, there's a couple in different genres actually. The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston is a romance, but I think that it was done really well and had a really interesting time warp kind of thing. Definitely going back a little bit farther, but only because I haven't reread them. But all of Blake Crouch's books do this. Specifically Recursion and Dark Matter, you're dealing with like alternate realities and alternate memories. And I feel like that kind of is the same thing as like dealing with time. And then Una Out of Order also has a really interesting kind of it's not Groundhog Day, but it's basically where she wakes up every New Year's in a different year. So one year she's 22, and then the next year she's 35, and then she's 40, and then she comes back and she's 27. And so like she's not living her life linearly. And then controversial, but I also really liked The Unmaking of June Farrow, and that has a time travel element to it, and I think was smartly done. Most people do not like this book, but I had a good time with it. Another book that kind of plays with time that I really liked, totally forgot about, was Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. This actually kind of worked in a Groundhog Day way. It wasn't an exact Groundhog Day. It was like going farther and farther back. So like until she could figure out how to undo what had happened. Really, really enjoyed that one. But some ones that I have on my TBR, I actually didn't think I had this many. I'm also planning on doing a reread of Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and this one kind of fits that obviously, but after watching the show I really want to reread it, and there's a few of us in Mel's Discord that want to, so we might be doing that in August. But I have a couple here that I realize kind of also do this. The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. This is about like this woman goes up to her attic, and like a husband comes down, but then when he goes back up to the attic to go change a light bulb or something, another one comes down. And so she's like basically jumping into these different realities. So maybe not playing with time per se, but playing with reality, with multiverse kind of thing. And then two that based on the synopsis kind of feel like they could, How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. This is about a girl in 1965 that has been told by a fortune teller that Frances will be murdered. And so she spends a lifetime trying to solve a crime that hasn't happened yet, compiling dirt on every person who crosses her path in an effort to prevent her own demise. For decades, no one takes Frances seriously until that is nearly 60 years later when Frances is found murdered. And then in the present day, Annie Adams has been summoned to a meeting at the sprawling country estate of her wealthy and reclusive great aunt Frances. So, maybe, I don't know if it's necessarily going to play with time, but like I'm sure we're going to have some like flashbacks and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. And then I have Timekeeper by Tara Sem. I hesitate to put this one on as a 5-star prediction because I haven't loved Tara Sem's writing in the past. I've liked some of her stuff, but not all of it. But this is an alternate Victorian world controlled by clock towers where a damaged clock can fracture time and a destroyed one can stop it completely, which just sounds really cool. This is a completed trilogy. I own the first two, so I should probably read them. But I think that's a pretty good list, a pretty good start to books that I might want to pick up in August. I will still be playing Kerplunk in August, but I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently just so I can make sure that I get some books on there that I really think I'm going to love. If you know of any books that would kind of fit into these tropes, let me know down in the comments below. If you're not feeling chatty, do a clock emoji. That's all I have for you today. If you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little button you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!
Told you this was temporary, didn't I? But you changed my mind like the weather when I saw you wearing my sweatshirt. Told myself I was here terrified.